Cracking and start recording, aren't we?
We are indeed. So,
Fantastic. So I will introduce myself. Welcome everybody, wherever you might be. Do tell us in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. My name is Dr. Samantha Wellapilly. I am a GP. I'm very privileged to be part of the lifestyle medicine team here at Boots Online Doctor. We're here to support you with all things lifestyle and weight loss every Monday lunchtime, pretty much. And as well as being a GP, I'm a yoga therapist, nutritionist. I've written a few books, and I'm very passionate about how we can support ourselves to make that inner transformation that supports our health goals. And I'm joined today by my colleague Ruth, who's going to say hi also.
hi everyone. For those that don't know me, I'm Ruth Taylor. I'm a nutritionist with Boots Online Doctor, also a registered nurse and health and wellness coach. And yeah, it is an absolute privilege to be here. I agree with you, Sam, on a Monday. Really, we're here very much to support you on your weight loss journeys, to be a source of information. We check all of the research. We spend hours looking at research and making sure that everything we talk about has a lot of evidence behind it, to make sure that we're sharing up-to-date information as much as we can. If you've brought any questions along, please do pop them into the Q&A box. You will find that on the bottom of your panel. So you should be able to find something called Q&A box. We love finding the questions there because it sort of is a place to put them all together. If for any reason you cannot find that, please feel free to pop it in the chat box. Do say hello into the chat box. We love to hear from you. And if you have a question that sits outside of what we can safely answer in a webinar, we'll redirect you to the right level of support. Obviously, in a webinar, we cannot really offer any personal recommendations or advice. So just so everybody's aware of that, really. And I have a whole little team of ladybirds joining me today. So um, if they start flying around, please ignore my dodging as we speak, because they are a little bit active because I've made it a bit warmer in my office. So sorry about that, Sam.
All right, well, we'll forgive you, Ruth. Don't worry. If you're sort of making some unusual movements, we'll know why.
We have someone
Okay.
joining us from Canada today. A
Oh,
very warm welcome
fantastic.
for wherever you
Welcome.
are in the world.
And Mary from the States as well is joining us. Wow. Okay. So we have some international visitors today. Everyone is welcome. So thank you for joining us. So a bit of accountability. I think, Ruth, you spoke about sleep last week. Is that right?
We did, yes. It was a very interesting and insightful webinar, I think people found, and perhaps something that isn't talked about that much. So how's it been? Have you made any changes? Were you here last week? Did you do anything differently over the last week? Did anything make a difference? We shared a few tips as to what might help. We'd be very interested to hear from you.
Excellent. Yeah. Let us know in the chat box how you got on between then and now. Um, and if you didn't attend last week, that is also fine. The webinars are designed you can pop in at any point. Obviously, we cover a lot of information in each week, so there's a lot to get through. So shout, this is quite a long webinar, so we will move through.
Yes, very much so. Good. Also, just let you know that we will be sharing a couple of polls with you during the webinar. So when we have the polls, we just want to check in with you. There's no right or wrong answers. You'll be completely anonymous when you do answer them. So don't feel too alarmed by those. So really, we wanted to start by thinking, okay, what's going on? Why isn't weight loss? We've had years and years, haven't we, of thinking that weight loss is all about what we eat, how much we move, the whole calories in, the calories out. That whole mantra has really stuck around for quite a few decades in many ways. But what we know from looking at the research and from working with hundreds of you is that calories really aren't the whole story. We know that different foods have different effects on your body. Those effects influence how hungry you feel, how full you feel, your energy levels, and your cravings. So we know when we talk about this a lot, protein and fiber help you feel fuller for longer, and they can help support your body's natural appetite regulation. Whereas we know that when we lean on those overly processed high sugar foods, they can leave you feeling quite hungry quite quickly. We're not just going to be talking about food today. Really, it's all about mindset because when your body's out of balance, it's really hard to stay on track. We know that protein and fiber help regulate your appetite by slowing gastric emptying, releasing satiety hormones like GLP-1s and another hormone called peptide YY, and that helps you be less likely to overeat. But mindset is really important in all of this. So we're going to be looking at this as a key thing. But we also need to not restrict. Restriction is one of the key things that people often get wrong. They think that actually cutting the calories, restricting how much they eat, almost to the point of feeling hungry, perhaps if you're on a weight loss medication, that is less of a problem, but not everybody will be. But actually, it isn't about that. We want to be choosing foods that really help to balance us, balance our hormones, balance us emotionally as well. So we need to also think about the psychological, the emotional, and the behavioral aspects of eating. And that's why this webinar is so important. There are major players in weight management, things like stress, emotional eating, and habit patterns. So we really want to be thinking about all of those factors, as well as thinking about your body composition, your hormonal balance, and things like PCOS or thyroid function can have quite a big impact. So this is why we don't just focus on calories. We want you to really tune in to what's going on here today. So Sam, I'm going to hand over to you.
Yeah, yeah, and I think just on what you've just said, Ruth, is I think I really want to get across the message of like, don't be daunted by knowing a bit more about food and what's going on your plate. So when we talk about macronutrients, which is a fancy way of saying protein, fiber, fat, carbohydrates, that's all it means. And that's really more what we focus on, the sort of macros, how you build your plate. So don't be alarmed because some of us might be very used to that sort of calorie system, which is, as Ruth has said, a little outdated now. Anyway, we're talking about all about psychology today, and about our thoughts and how they shape our actions. Our thoughts, as we probably all know, are incredibly powerful and they don't just sit in the background. They shape how we feel and they shape what we do. Okay. The way we talk to ourselves, that inner voice, maybe it's our inner cheerleader, maybe it's our inner critic, really does have a huge influence on our behaviors and our behaviors around our movement, around our food, around our sleep, around this whole weight loss journey. And a supportive mindset will help us to stay really consistent with those behaviors that we want to retrain and really cement into place. So those new healthier behaviors really support us for the long haul. Okay, so this diagram kind of shows that interaction really simply: emotions, thoughts, and behaviors interacting with each others. Okay, our thoughts influence our emotions influence our behaviors then reinforce our thoughts and emotions. So it becomes a cycle. Um, and if that cycle is negative or not so healthy, it can keep us stuck in patterns that we don't want to be stuck in. So I would really encourage you to start bringing more awareness to how you speak to yourself. So can you think about, and this is without judgment or unkindness towards ourselves, the way that sometimes we can, when we're on a journey that can present challenge, sometimes we can hear ourselves say, I always do this. Oh, I never manage to keep the weight off. I always mess it up. What's the point? Things like that. So I want us to think about those. The first step is awareness, just bringing awareness to those things that we can say to ourselves that are not necessarily kind or helpful. These thoughts can really get us frustrated or low, make us give up, ruin our motivation, and then our behaviors can take us further away from where we want to be. The good news is we can shift these things. We can gently shift this cycle. And this is a huge topic, the way our identity, the way we identify ourselves, the way we see ourselves really matters. Okay. If you see yourself as someone who always messes up, your behavior will follow that belief. Okay. And that's not true. That's not true of anybody. Okay. No one always messes up. So I would really look at the way also that we use those always and never statements in reality when we're chatting to people, but also to ourselves. do we talk to ourselves like, oh, you always do this, or you always mess this up, or you always get this wrong, whatever it might be? Or do we say things that build ourselves up? Do we give ourselves a bit of leeway? Because those always and never statements, I never get this right, or whatever it might be, they don't give us any room, right? They don't give us any room to improve. And it's okay. Sometimes we do get things, don't do the right thing and we, slightly go off piste a little bit. That's okay. As long as we recognize that and come back to, our what we know, the changes in our behavior that we want to make, that's okay. Nothing is a straight line. When we are talking about a journey of transformation, which for many of us this will be, our identity is so core to who we are. And is our identity a person with healthy habits, or is it an identity of someone who is a chocoholic, or who completely is a cookie monster? Like it could be anything that we have identified for, maybe for all of our lives. We're a crisp fiend or whatever it might be. We we want to change that identity, don't we, to a degree? Okay, it doesn't mean that you never have another crisp in your life. It just means that that's not part of your identity. That's not what you always say. Like I'm still guilty of this, so I still have some work to do because I say, oh, I have a real sweet tooth. I will say that to myself. I'll say that to other people. Don't put the biscuits near me because I have a real sweet tooth, and they will be gone in 5 seconds. But we can change that. It doesn't have to be something that rules our life, especially when we are in that acute phase of a weight loss journey. So, actually, we will put a poll out to find out where you guys are on your weight loss journey. If you're right at the beginning, if you're in the middle, if you're actually in a maintenance phase and you've got to a weight that you're really happy with, let us know because, the rules are generally, I say the rules, the guidance is generally the same, but in maintenance, it's slightly different. There's a little bit more leeway. Um, so, we want to kind of make a shift and begin that shift in identity to swap that feeling of, not of being really challenged by having those always and never statements to something like I'm learning. I'm someone who's working on my health. I'm on a journey and I'm learning every day. And these small changes make a really big impact in the long term. And the more we reinforce those, we're laying down new neural pathways, which is a fancy way of saying we are creating new patterns. So that pattern of I'll never do this, I'm always hopeless, or whatever it is, we can have really negative things that we tell ourselves and reinforce every day. I will certainly put my hand up to those. Like I said, sweet tooth, that's me. But it's not me. I'm learning new ways of not having that sweet tooth, and I'm retraining my taste buds. So I am not that person. Um, but it's step by step. It's step by step, and we're not expecting overnight everything to be different. We have to think about consistency and not perfection. Um, and this is the supportive mindset that we want to cultivate. Because we can also term these things limiting beliefs, like I don't have the willpower, I can't do this. These are thoughts, they are not facts. It's really important to maintain that. Okay. Remember, it's not overnight. This is a journey of steps, okay, and really being kind to yourself. And I think a lot of our traditional weight loss, what we've done for years and decades, has not been very kind, actually. It's been a very regimented, very almost punitive, I think, sometimes the journey. So I think we need to rewrite that and be kinder to ourselves. Right. Sorry, I've labored that slide quite a lot. Let's move through.
I think not. I think it's so important, isn't it? And we can just get caught in that trap, the trap of who we once were. So let's have a look. So in terms of phase and where you are, I can see a few of you, or about 70% of you, have answered the poll. So thank you for taking part in that. That's completely anonymous. I can see the majority of people here today are midway through your journey. So well done for being here. That can be a time when motivation begins to wane a little bit. We can find it quite a struggle. I can see there are a few of you, sort of at around 35% of you are just starting out, and we've got 20% of you who are entering into that or already in that maintenance phase. So well done. I'm really glad to have you all here, whichever phase you're in. It is really important to get that accountability, to reinforce how we need to start thinking, and to also just relearn some of the habits that we got stuck in along the way of life, I would say. And along those journeys of weight loss, it can almost sabotage us, can't it? So, talking of sabotage, this is really interesting. So, what is self-sabotage? It might be something that a few of you really can resonate with. But what we know from looking at all of the research is something that self-sabotage is something that we often see a lot of the time. And if it resonates with you, you're really not alone at all. We know that it can be one of the reasons people get stuck and feel stuck on that weight loss journey or on that health journey that you want to be on. Many people are losing weight because they want to improve their health. We know this, but it doesn't necessarily mean just because you've got that understanding of why that it's suddenly all going to fall into place and be easy. Or it might be that you find it really hard to get started. You've got loads of really positive intentions and it's just really hard to get off the starting blocks. It's not really, I think we've always thought historically that this is all about willpower, but what we understand from looking at the research and looking at the world of psychology and looking at really how we work as humans, that it really isn't about a lack of willpower. It's often a mix of our thoughts, our emotions, and our habits that are all intertwined, working together and almost tripping us up. Sometimes these can be conscious, sometimes they can be quite hidden. It can look like we're putting something off. I'll do it, but I'm not going to start today. I'm going to start tomorrow. For me, it's okay, I need to rejoin the gym. So, what am I going to do? It's sort of taken me a whole month to get to the point where I'm actually going to go and rejoin the gym. But it takes, you can really, really be that person, can't you? We can all be it. Or it could be that actually one of your learned habits is that when you're stressed or you're tired or feeling overwhelmed, that actually food becomes your prop. And it's always been your prop. And it's often when you're in those moments of stress, tired, or overwhelmed that you're actually going to reach not for a carrot stick or an apple or something healthy, but for something like a packet of crisps or a chocolate bar or something that will really just give you that emotional lift, but maybe derail your energy, derail your blood sugar balance and really not keep you on track. So it's sort of really important. And when we have those high sugar, high fat sort of treats that keep us going, emotionally prop us up, that can play havoc in terms of our blood sugar balance, our insulin sensitivity, and our ability to lose weight. And we can get into that roller coaster of blood sugar imbalance. So you might have had a plan to go for a walk or to join the gym, and then something comes up, a message, an invitation, a friend, somebody in your life who perhaps is your saboteur. It could be you, it could be a friend, it could be a partner, it could be a family member. We know that they can be hidden in plain sight, and we can hide in plain sight from ourselves. Suddenly you'll find that all those good intentions have gone and you're off track, not because you don't care, because something's cropped up at the moment. It's given the excuse yet again to not go there, not do this. And we often talk, don't we, about triggers. These can be internal triggers like stress, boredom, low mood, loneliness, but it can also be external things like the wrong food in the cupboard. You open the fridge, you're looking for a healthy snack, but there's one of your favorite treats just staring you in the face, waving at you. And goodness me, you're hungry, you can't be bothered to prepare something really healthy. And before you know it, you've had that treat. We've all done it. So this isn't about blame, it's about bringing awareness. It's about you bringing awareness to yourself. You don't have to share, but if this makes sense and you want to share, that's great because I think we're all human. I think that's the key thing here, isn't it? Some people also notice that certain foods, once you pop, you just can't stop. It could be biscuits, it could be crisps, it could be a big bar of chocolate. It can be really hard, and that's all to do with the manufacturing process of those foods. They have been created very carefully and cleverly by the manufacturers to almost make them unstoppable. So, really take a moment to think about this, to reflect, think about any patterns that might be feeling familiar to you. it isn't about blame. It's exactly what Sam was saying just now. We're not here blaming ourselves. We're here to really understand. Somebody said, yes, they were a chocoholic, definitely need to move away from that. And maybe actually the definition is actually if you define yourself as a chocoholic in your head, then maybe it's about changing that wording. What would you say, Sam? Maybe change it to I was once a chocoholic, I am no longer. I'm an appleaholic, or I know.
Or I'm making healthier choices for myself, and like you said, like instead of having your favorite chocolate dessert in the fridge, can you swap those for the, sort of cocoa flavored protein balls or dates and walnuts or something else that still gives you a bit of a sweet hit if that is your thing and you're weaning yourself off the sweetness, but it still gives you something. So you're not going cold turkey and feeling absolutely miserable, but you're having something that's still still giving you something.
Gives you a little bit of a happy moment. And I think we also need to learn, which foods are going to be our long-term happy foods. And I guess we just wanted to bring in here, which makes absolute sense about really stepping away from diets that become so restrictive and have a whole list of foods that you can never touch, never have, never enjoy. It almost drives the need to have them even more. We know that when somebody overly restricts, when people overly restrict, that type of approach to eating is really difficult to sustain long term because when we restrict too much, our bodies push back. Hunger increases, we feel our energy drop, and food will start to occupy our mental space more and more and more. And this can almost lead to a sort of point of diet fatigue. We can become really worn out and overwhelmed with food and trying to be healthy and avoiding the foods that we know perhaps aren't our best foods to be eating regularly. But we can also see emotional eating increase. When we feel overly restricted, we know that the thing that will happen next in that cycle is that people will lean into that whole emotional eating. The foods that they've been avoiding suddenly have greater importance in their head. Maybe not really when you rationalize it, but this isn't about rational behavior. This is about emotional behavior. And the two things don't often mirror one another until you relearn that whole cycle. And that's where restriction can lead this cycle almost of overeating. We know if we overly restrict, we will overeat. We'll then feel guilty. And when we feel guilty and we start beating ourselves up again, we'll go back to restriction, back into that cycle, and the cycle will continue. So we want to be thinking about how we break that cycle. Again, this isn't about willpower at all. It's a very natural biological, physiological, and psychological response. So if you have recognized this pattern for yourselves, it's not about failure at all. It's about your body doing what your body does. It's about your biology. It's about your physiology. It's about your psychology. And actually, this is the thing that we are really wanting us all to rebalance and really think about nourishment, creating balance, finding a process that isn't perfect, that we can do consistently right 80% of the time. And we allow the 20% to have those wobbles, have those moments of falling off track and not feeling bad about it. We don't want to be beating ourselves up in any shape, size at all, really. I think it's just so important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Um, and this slide really we couldn't really do a webinar about psychology of weight loss and not talk about stress. Um, and really what the slide is about is recognizing your triggers. So are they those day-to-day pressures? Is it sort of a chronic situation that's going on in your life? Emotional stress, physical illness causes stress. Um, Poor sleep, or sometimes when we don't eat regularly, we get blood sugar dips over the day. Sometimes it's more subtle. We will all have our own triggers for feeling stressed. So have a think. This is just very individual, and it is it's just for you really to reflect on, um, because we know when we get stressed, our body releases stress hormones like cortisol, which is helpful in the short term. It's designed to keep us alert, put us into that fight or flight state, and support us when a acutely stressful thing happens. But you might notice that if it becomes ongoing, that it starts to affect other systems. So you might notice stronger cravings, especially for quick energy foods, so sort of high carb, high sugar foods, eating more in the afternoon or evening, feeling too tired to cook or even really to move very much. And again, this is not about willpower, it's about your body trying to cope with the different demands. So when we're stressed out, it can lead to more fluctuations in energy and in hunger, which can make things feel even harder. So weight loss can feel more difficult during those stressful periods, and there's usually a reason. Um, and this is where your awareness becomes really powerful because once you understand your patterns, you can start to plan for them. And actually, there was a really good comment in the chat. I would really encourage everyone to share your posts with everyone, rather than just hosts and panelists, so that everyone can read them because there's really helpful comments in here. There's one from someone saying, what works for me, I know I will snack, so I prepare healthy snacks in advance and take them with me. So, just knowing that you have those healthy options and forward planning is what really helps this person to make really good choices. And I would really applaud that. And I would love it if you would share that with everybody, rather than just hosts and panelists, because everyone should hear this.
No,
Um, and it's great to share your wins. So thank you.
I've shared that, Sam. I've
Oh,
copied
great.
it in because it is brilliant. So, yeah,
So thank you. Yes.
very much so. So, maybe just take a moment here when we talk about awareness and triggering behavior change. What does that really mean for you? Because say what much of what we've talked about so far is really about our automatic patterns, our automatic thoughts, our habits, and our behavior. We've looked at the work of these experts in the sort of world of habit formation, like James Clear and Charles Duhigg. And actually, what we know is from looking at their work, and we talk about this in the habits webinar, but I think it's really worth bringing in here. Around 70 or more percent of everything we do every day is based on habit. So, goodness me, it can be really hard, can't it, to change those habits when actually we're almost just going through life with those patterns of behavior. So we really need to recognize what those patterns are, bring them into the light, have a look at them, see if they're still working for you, see if they're helping you get from life what you want. And if not, you have a choice, don't you? You might start to notice what we'd really like you to do is to start noticing those habits, really start noticing what happens for you when you're stressed, when certain situations crop up and throw you off track, when your thoughts maybe become negative, and what happens when your thoughts do become negative? Do they almost derail you? Are they sabotaging your efforts? Are they sort of adding to the mix of really making it harder for you to stay on track? So, awareness is never about judging yourself. It's always about giving yourself an awareness so that you can create different choices. So, exactly what that person is saying that I shared in the chat box now, actually, just what I do differently. I prepare healthy snacks. I go prepared. I go to meetings. I'm prepared with something healthy to eat. It sounds so simple. We know how not simple that is, but we know how important being prepared, understanding ourselves, understanding our own patterns of behavior, knowing where we trip ourselves up or where others trip us up or where we're happy to be tripped up, but then unhappy the next day. So sometimes you can just join in and be really ecstatic, can't you? And then you can be really regretful. So what's the bigger picture? Is it a short-term gain or a long-term win that you want? So I think we really need to think about the whole story as much as we possibly can. Yeah, so I hope that makes sense. For me, it makes enormous sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Ruth. So, what this slide is all about is mindfulness essentially, but mindfulness in a sort of just everyday sense. So mindfulness simply about becoming more aware of your thoughts. So again, it is about awareness, noticing the thought, pausing, questioning without judgment. Okay. Because our thoughts can either support us or hold us back. So the first step is that awareness just to notice the thought. And if necessary, we can gently reframe it, focus on what's going well, be kind to yourself. That is such a key. And I think something that we really is missing in a lot of sort of weight loss chat, really being kind to ourselves on the journey because it does present challenges. And many of us have been on a weight loss journey for years, on and off and on and off. I can definitely put my hand to some of that in the past. Um, it can be overcome. It just takes real kindness and patience with yourself and coming back to basics and coming back to again that identity, like who am I? Who do I want to be? Who am I becoming actually? So we want to look at reframing into something realistic, something supportive from, I've messed up to I'm learning, and I'm taking it step by step every day. And, I am becoming the person I want to be, and again, we talk about the why a lot, why, what your intrinsic motivation is, what your deep, meaningful, emotionally connected reason is for wanting to lose weight in the first place. It might be physical health reasons. It might be, wanting to set an example for your children. It might be wanting to set an example for your grandchildren. Like it could be so many things, and it will be deeply, personal to you. But we are, you know, we're not, um, going to give up. So motivation is really important. And sometimes our inner thoughts and our inner dialogue can really derail us. When we have that thought of like, oh, I've messed it all up, what's the point? I've gone off track, I've lost it all. You can reset at the next meal. That's fine. Okay. We just reset. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It can just be like, okay, right, next time I'm gonna do better, you know? It really helps us also when we question, when we have that mindful thinking, it can help us to focus on what is going well, even small things, because we often overlook our progress. And we can really use this way to practice that self-compassion, speaking to yourself in a way that you would speak to someone you really care about, like your best friend. Okay. Some of the things we say to ourselves, we would never say to someone we cared about or someone else in our lives. So let's think that's kind of a nice way to think about it. When we say being kind to yourself, speak to yourself how you would speak to your best friend or how you would speak to your sister or your parent or whoever it is, someone you love in your life. Think about that in the way that you speak to yourself. And notice over time, I guarantee you that the way you speak to yourself will have so many ripple effects to everything in your life, not just your weight loss journey, but particularly your weight loss journey, because that's what we're focusing on. But like the way we speak to ourselves has such a fundamental way of how we identify as who we are, as someone worth caring about and having compassion for. Okay, this is where lasting change really happens. It really happens on that kind of mental, emotional level and being kind from the get-go when we start with ourselves.
Yeah, it's such an important point, isn't it? So, I guess, Sam, do you want to talk us through this slide as well?
Sure. So again, this is again a bit about mindfulness, mindful eating. It's simply about paying attention and being present with your food. Um, because for so many of us, eating is just this automatic behavior. We'll have the TV on and we'll just kind of put spoonfuls into our mouth and we eat while we're working. We're scrolling on our phones, and before you know it, the food is gone and we don't feel satisfied and we haven't really tasted the food that was on our plate. And that can lead to us feeling hungry all the time or constantly reaching for snacks, not actually because you're particularly hungry but because you haven't had that awareness of eating the food. So you get a lot more satisfaction when you eat more mindfully. And it doesn't mean that you actually eat slowly. It just means that you focus when you're eating on the textures, the taste, the smell, the consistency of your food. You can begin by noticing, observing what does the food look like, smell like, you know, what does it feel like as you're chewing, and are you chewing? That's the other thing. Some of us, I know I've been guilty of this when I've been in a rush, just basically inhaling your food, you know, but actually, slowing down a little bit so you can chew your food, because we know that's obviously an important part of your digestive process. Really pay attention to the flavor and the texture and really enjoy it. Instead of inhaling it and just sort of getting getting the plate into your tummy as quickly as possible, as sometimes we're just in a habit of doing, we'll actually allow ourselves to enjoy it. Something interesting happens when we eat more mindfully, we feel more satisfying, and even we feel more satisfied with less food. We start to recognize the signals our body is giving us to signal fullness. And it creates a little bit of a pause. The body takes a bit of time to release the hormones that signal our brain that, oh, you're full actually, you've had enough. And maybe you don't need to finish everything you've served yourself, and that can go in Tupperware and in the fridge. You don't have to throw things away. It's not about eating perfectly. It's about creating that little pause, because that is where we can make our choices. Okay. Um, and this links really nicely to the hunger scale, which Ruth is just going to talk us through. Thank you, Ruth.
Brilliant. Yeah. So I don't know if anyone has come across the hunger scale, and this really isn't something to worry about, but it can be a helpful tool. And it really builds directly on what Sam's just been talking about, really, is a way of maybe quantifying how to tune back into your body. It is a sort of a new skill. It can take practice, and it can bring in an element of bringing back an awareness of when to eat. Because I think actually, I was listening to a podcast about this, but I think in society we've almost lost our sense of when it's right to eat. If you look back at what happened in the 1970s, 1980s, we weren't a nation of snackers. We were a nation where we ate 2 or 3 meals a day, and we didn't generally snack. We didn't generally eat after our dinner in the evening. But we've lost all of that. And I think we've lost our ability to tune in sometimes to real hunger. And we're almost like eating for emotional hunger. It's very different. We need to start thinking, okay, what is it my body needs? What does my physiology need? How do I reset what's going on? So this is a tool that can help. So with this hunger scale, it goes from 0 to 10, as you can see. What we would recommend is that you really check in with yourself, and before you start eating, really think where you are in terms of that hunger on that hunger scale. When you get used to this and you start using it more regularly, we would recommend that you start eating when you're around a 3 to 4, that you're not ravenously hungry, that you are hungry but not overly hungry. If we wait till we're at that lower end of the scale on a 1 or 2, we're really, really hungry or starving, it can be really difficult to make balanced food choices. And this is what we want to be helping you to learn to do. And as you eat, you'll gently check in with yourself. Sometimes it can take 20 minutes after we've eaten to have that satiety trigger, that awareness that we're full. So we want to slow down our eating. As Sam was saying, it can really help with satiety and with eating in a way that we're comfortable, we don't feel overly stuffed, and we've overeaten. We don't want you to be feeling like that. So we want you to stop when you're sort of around that comfortably satisfied feeling, around a 6 or a 7. You're not overly full, you're not overly stuffed. And just remember for yourselves that it can take a little bit of while for your brain to catch up with what's going on in your abdomen or in your tummy. So you might not register that fullness straight away, which is why we want you to stop eating sort of around the 6 to 7, because you might still have a bit of a lag effect before you feel beginning to feel that uncomfortably full feeling. Slowing down can really help. It's not about being perfect, it's just about using some sort of tool and awareness of hunger, and that it's okay not to be stuffed. And for people who are coming off a GLP-1, this can be really helpful. Maybe a little bit less helpful initially, where I think we almost need to go by a few sort of set rules around eating. It can be really hard. Your appetite can feel momentarily much higher. So you can't always tune in to your natural appetite in those first few weeks when you stop taking a weight loss medication. You might find your appetite is stronger than before. So there we would recommend almost just saying, right, I'm going to have create my plate of food. I'm not going to have seconds or leftovers. I'm going to drink more clear fluids between meals to really satisfy my hunger. It can be a really challenging time. So hunger scales can come back in for you maybe a little bit further down the road. This again might be something that you've tried, you get on really well with, or you want to experiment with. We're all different, so some things will work for some of us and not for others. Maybe just even having an awareness that actually it takes time to register, that feeling of satisfied is really helpful. So let's just think. These are our key take-home messages today. It's about thinking, it's about the stories we tell ourselves, it's about our thoughts that shape our behaviors, it's about managing stress and habits and our emotions. And it's about bringing awareness back in to really help with that. We've got a couple of last polls to share with you. So I'm going to try and quickly find one of those. Brilliant. Thanks, Raman. Sorry, forgot to introduce the fact Raman is here helping us today. So thank you for being here and helping us, Raman. Again, the poll is completely anonymous. Be lovely to hear from you what you might be doing differently over the next week. We'll be back again with you next week. So we'll check in with you. Again, maybe just choose one or two things. Don't overwhelm yourself by trying to do too much because we know that that can be really unhelpful. And we'll be moving on in a minute to have a look at your questions. And just while we're thinking about the poll, we have a message from our marketing team who are really keen to hear from any of our Boots Online Doctor customers who have been successful on their weight loss journeys or halfway through and finding it a really positive journey, perhaps using some of the lifestyle support, but really just about how the Boots Online Doctor team have been supportive for you on your journey. If you'd like to be involved, if you'd like to share your story, or you just want to learn more, then please do contact the marketing team. And Raman's going to share the email with you in the chat box. So thank you, Raman. If you could share that, that would be great. Yeah, I mean, it would be great. I think people really feel inspired when they hear from other people. We all do. We're humans, aren't we? So if we can in any way inspire people, we would love to do that. Okay, so let's hear what's going on in this chat box. So cool, we've got the wrong poll up, I think. Or have we got two polls up? No, let's see. Let's have a look. We maybe will ask the polls while we're asking questions. We're coming to your questions then because we don't want to be here.
Yeah, we've got the psychology of weight loss
Hmm.
answers here from the poll. People wanted to understand more about the psychology behind weight loss and then practical strategies. Those are them and build motivation and stay consistent. So really good reasons for coming. Um, and they want to gain practical strategies, tools to help me move forwards, a sustainable approach to weight loss that lasts. Yes, that is what we want for you as well. Okay, and what's the journey look like so far? Okay, lots of people on that sort of regain pattern. Okay, so yeah, we've just got one last poll for you, just about after the talk today, how you feel. We've got a few more webinars coming up, so Raman surely will send out the link to sign up for any future webinars that you're interested in. Please do come along. We will get onto your questions.
Yeah, and just to let you know that next week we will be here on Tuesday, not Monday, because there's a bank holiday on Monday. And what we have found is that on the bank holiday Mondays, if the weather is nice, everybody wants to be out doing something lovely. So we, including us, if we're not working.
Yes.
So we're switching over to Tuesday. Now we're going to come to questions, but we do have this final poll up. So a few of you are going to reflect on your why and write it down. Writing it down is really helpful and really dig into that deep down emotional reason why this is important. A lot of you, about 30% of you, are going to set an achievable goal for the week. I love that. A lot of you, around 40%, are going to be noticing your habits and patterns around food. Well done. I love that idea. And I think it's a really important step. A lot of you, 25% of you, are going to be focusing on consistency, not perfection. And a few of you are feeling a little bit clearer and more confident about your next steps. So that's great to hear as well. Right, Sam, let's crack on with these questions. We have a few, so I think they're probably the most important thing to be thinking about.
Yeah. Someone's asked about motivation. So intrinsic motivation, your why, really, really important to set a why before any sort of transformation process that you're going on. So why are you doing it? Because we know that it's going to present challenge because any process of transformation will. So it's going to be deeply personal to each of us. I would really recommend that you sit with that and just reflect on why you want to lose weight. There could be all sorts of reasons, and they can be as personal as you like, but it's really important to have a bit of an emotional charge and kind of ask. So think of one thing, then ask why, and then ask why again. So you can keep asking why if you come up with a statement like, oh, why I don't want to have so much pain in my knees. Okay, why? What will having less pain in your knees mean? And why is that important? And why is that important? So you can see, you can really drill down something like a core nugget of something that you really identify with. Frame it in a positive way. So, like, I would like to be an example to my grandchildren and so that they can have a long and healthy life, whatever it might be. That might be something that is important to you. Um, and I would write that down, maybe put it as your phone screensaver or somewhere, or stick it on a post-it on your bathroom mirror so that you are reminded of it. And hopefully it will be a strong anchor for you because, you know, the line is not straight from A to B. There's going to be some wavering along that line, but you need these little anchors to bring you back and so to refresh your motivation. And goals wise, Ruth, do you want to say anything about goals here?
I think it's about maybe setting short-term goals, not it's always good to have like the mountain in sight to know what your long-term aim is. But and depending on in weight loss terms, how much weight you want to lose, I really recommend breaking it down into small, achievable amounts and celebrating that success when you achieve that. And just maybe, not being derailed when you hit a plateau. I know that's slightly separate to goals, but we can find that can really be destabilizing. Small goals, celebrate them when you achieve them, set the next intention, set the next goal, and maybe make goals something not only just about your weight, but about the food you eat or, the movement in your day, whatever is appropriate for you, I would say. It's really important to think outside of the box as well, I think. Um, would you agree, Sam?
Mm, yeah, absolutely. Break your larger goal down into smaller ones and yeah,
Yeah,
celebrate.
definitely. Somebody is asking about hunger and managing hunger when they're not taking a GLP-1 and managing those cravings. So really, let's share, if that's okay, Raman, if you could share the core meal plan, that would be great. And also the protein content of foods, because this is very relevant. Protein is really important. I can see a few comments in the chat box from earlier that people are really nailing the protein and the protein is really helping. So that's really good to see. Protein is really important. We want you to be having that 1 gram per kilogram of your current body weight per day, broken that down across your 2 or 3 meals, depending on how many meals you're eating. You can even think about whether putting some of your protein into a snack would be helpful. So, actually, maybe turning a snack into something healthy rather than something sweet and something that's going to perpetuate this cycle of cravings and not quite being on control. You then want to be adding in the fiber from the vegetables. So you want half your plate of every meal, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, to have some sort of vegetable fiber because that really fills you up. And we know the protein really helps to produce your own GLP-1. So this is really important too. And then those healthy fats can really help with satiety. So a small amount, a thumb-sized digit of healthy fats. And then just a small amount of whole grains. So look at the core meal plan, really follow that. If you start sort of balancing your plate in relation to how we've set out that core meal plan, that can really help in terms of satiety and just getting it right without having to overthink it. And you don't need your meals to look like something from MasterChef. It is just about putting the right foods on your plate. I think we can get it overcomplicated, can't we? So hopefully that helps.
Yep.
And there was a follow-on one about cravings and sugar. So let's follow through with that because it would put it nicely together. Anything you want to join in on that one, Sam?
Yeah, I think that one, again, the sugar and so I'd really encourage you to come to some of our food webinars because we talk a lot about these cravings. And And I think what Ruth has said about having protein and fiber and a little bit of healthy fat in every meal, um, what that is doing on a physiological level is giving you a really slow release of blood sugar over the day. So you're not getting great big spikes and sugar crashes over the day. And that can happen. Some of us are crisp people rather than chocolate biscuit people. Um, Imagine that the crisps, the salty crisps are also they're potatoes, so they're going to digest very quickly into carbohydrates and blood sugar as well. So that's going to have a similar impact to chocolate biscuit. Okay. So just what we're doing with the protein, sort of having some carb, but a little bit, not as much as we maybe traditionally have had, and really emphasizing the fiber on the plate, the veggies on the plate, and the protein. What that does is it levels out. It's a slow release of blood sugar over the day. So you don't have those spikes and crashes of blood sugar that are creating the cravings, okay? Creating that I'm starving, hungry, and I need something. And then when you're rooting around, you're looking for your physiology is looking for a quick hit of carbohydrate to level up your blood sugar, and you're getting back on that roller coaster of up and down blood sugars over the day. So you want to really look at how you are bringing in those foods that will really support that lovely smooth blood sugar over the day, and that will really help those physiological cravings for sugar over the day, or extremely hungry or hangry feelings, in between meals where we're really looking for a sweet snack. Um, that is will help you with the physiological cravings. If there are psychological cravings, so there is, we're looking for comfort or we're looking for something to relieve our stress, then that is slightly different. So yes, of course, we want the same nice slow release blood sugar over the day, but we want to kind of examine where is that craving coming from? Is it physiological? Is there a psychological element of comfort eating or looking for something that will just give us a pick me up or something like that, in which case that's a kind of dopamine hit that we're looking for. What other things that are not food related will give us that same kind of like happiness that we're looking for from that food source? And that might take a bit of thinking about, what do we like doing? Do we like chatting to a friend? Do we like having a laugh with that particular friend? Can we just phone them and get that? Can we go out and get some fresh air? Can we spend time with our pets or our children or something else that brings us that little hit that is not chocolate based, perhaps? That might take a little bit more exploring, and it will be individual to each of us. I hope that is helpful.
Yeah, and somebody's asking about the hunger noise. I think distraction is a really good step as well. And also not eating too frequently so that your whole insulin mechanism can reset. And we really want to be creating a place of insulin sensitivity. So and actually, if we get that insulin sensitivity right, that will really help in terms of those cravings and managing the hunger. So conversely, having a break between foods and snacks is really important to really help with that. So almost like having a mini fast between each meals where you're just having maybe water for 3 or 4 hours before you have something else to eat can really make a difference. Somebody's asking how to deal with a husband who is a feeder. Um, I've asked for no treats, but he's still buying them. How can I resist? I can resist, but it gets harder as the evening progresses. I'm sure that's true. When we're tired, it really does get harder, doesn't it? Maybe you could ask him, I was just thinking about this, maybe you could ask him to actually put the money that he spends on those food treats into a jar, and then you could have a really lovely treat of a day out or something after a while. I don't know if anybody else has got some ideas who's still here in the audience. It can be really hard when people are used to buying food for us that we want and they know makes us happy, but we no longer want it. It doesn't serve us anymore. We almost need to help our identity in other people's eyes change as well. So maybe it's about re-educating that person about what would be a nice treat instead.
Mm.
Um, any thoughts from you, Sam, on that?
Yeah, like swapping them out, can there be sort of a protein ball snack, that's still sweet and delicious, but is much better for you than a Mars bar, for example. Um, so making a swap, a healthy swap, or I like the idea of saving the money and then doing something really fun. Um, that that could be it. But I think it's having a really serious conversation because it's probably meant out of a really lovely sentiment, but it's not helping you actually. It's kind of doing the opposite. So um, I think it's a good conversation to have and a good point to bring up. So thank you for that.
You're saying they ask for flowers. Yeah, a nice bunch of flowers
Oh
occasionally.
yeah, fabulous.
Someone's coming close to their goal weight and their BMI is dropping lower. So then going to need to start thinking about stopping their weight loss medications. And they're currently taking the second highest dose of weight loss medication, Manjaro. So yes, I would recommend dropping to 2.5 and then gradually weaning yourself down. But if you're a Boots Online Doctor customer, please email in and we can give you some advice. Part of the weight loss team is to provide advice in these situations for you. Otherwise, please contact your medication provider and get them to provide the advice. But really, weaning yourself off can be really helpful. And just expect that appetite noise to increase slightly and be prepared with all the core meal eating plan and getting those snacks right. If you really feel driven to have snack, remember to try and have that gap between meals. Somebody's saying they've got a lot of pain in their back because of a condition called spinal stenosis. So sorry to hear about that. Obviously, that probably also has quite an impact on your ability to move. We know movement is a part of helping us to lose weight, but it's not the whole story. Actually, following that core meal plan, following a Mediterranean style of eating to reduce inflammation would be something we'd really recommend signposting you to. So do come back and let us know if you would like. And yes, the question is from somebody, what's the email for advice? If you go onto your Boots Online Doctor team, you will find where you send a message through that process.
Yeah, if you log into your account, you'll find there's a messaging service. So do send us a message of specific questions for the clinical team. Um, Okay, someone's experiencing acid reflux and heartburn. Any recommendations? Not eating late at night. Okay. I would be looking at, I don't know if you're on an injection or not. Sometimes that is a known side effect of medication. Obviously, if it is extreme, you can, or, very strong and stopping you sleep, etc. Speaking to your GP about your symptoms could be the right thing to do. Other things, how can we help with there's simple over-the-counter things that you can use. Ruth, have you got any holistic suggestions for acid
Like
reflux?
having the spicy foods and coffee and chocolate can all trigger reflux in some people. So it's worth looking at whether those are part of your story at the moment and cutting those down. There are some natural remedies that you can take, but really for us to be recommending them, that would be on a
Yeah,
one-to-one level. And
yeah.
so I can't say I would really
The pharmacist in store might be able to help you as well if you go in.
speak to the in-store pharmacist. Because sometimes we're on medications that would be contraindicated. It's really not worth us suggesting that. So have a look at that.
Yeah. So the value of drinking water, well, the value of drinking water anyway, whether you're on injections or not, is high because obviously we need to hydrate our bodies. Um, the recommendation, if as long as all other things are equal, is about 2 litre, 1.5 to 2 litres a day of clear fluids. You can flavour that with, fruit. I would steer clear personally of cordials and fizzy drinks, that sort of thing, just because there are a lot of hidden or not so hidden sugars or natural sugars or unnatural sugars, which unfortunately all kind of have a very similar effect on the body's insulin mechanism because the body detects sweet taste and it releases insulin and you still get these insulin spikes over the day, which is our hormone that stores sugar. So if you can, slowly wean yourself off those sweet drinks. But the value of drinking clear fluids is obviously keeping all your vital processes going, but also it's I believe the evidence does show that you actually weight loss journey is much more successful when you are well hydrated.
Yes, very much so. Somebody's saying that they have a major problem achieving their ideal weight. They get very close, and then there are times when they just can't stop eating. You eat one thing, but put it away and instantly pick up another. Maybe it's about moving away from the food. That sounds so simplistic, but I think sometimes when you're in that brain space where you just can't stop eating, actually getting out in fresh air, cleaning your teeth can really help break that cycle. Having a glass of water. And maybe even writing an affirmation card, because at the moment, what you're hearing and what you're telling yourself is this is something, a cycle you can't break. And it is what we were saying all the way back earlier in the webinar, is we become the stories we tell ourselves. And this is so true. If you tell yourself this is something you can't get over, it makes it a much bigger mountain to climb. So try changing the record for yourself. I really hope that helps. Somebody's saying they're stopping having surgery on the 15th of April. Again, if you're a Boots Online Doctor patient, please do write in, log into your messaging system, send us a message, send a weight loss team a message, and we can offer you some advice about your medication. That is much the best way to go about it than us trying to grapple something together in the middle of a big, wide person podcast webinar. So please do email us. We'd much rather give you some one-to-one advice in that process.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some really good comments in the chat box I'm only seeing now. Margaret has a big win. She's walking daily, hitting steps goals. That's fantastic. Karina has said, she started to add protein to her breakfast, or she started to have a breakfast with protein. She didn't used to have breakfast before, and now, yeah, is noticing a big difference, isn't getting tired and hungry in the evening, which is fantastic. Changing your breakfast changes your behavior in the evening. So really, really interesting, like practical things that can be done.
Actually,
Uh,
here isn't it, isn't it? Setting ourselves up in the morning can make such a big difference to our sleep and our evening. We're going to share a webinar feedback link with you. Hopefully, if Raman can find that, would be great. We'd love your feedback. So thank you. Um,
we're just hitting 2 o'clock. I think there's one question there about PMS, so hormonal changes over the month. If it's really severe and it's throwing you off, I would probably talk to your GP about that, because it's important to get that sorted. And if it's really throwing you every month, then it's important.
if you're hitting your protein requirements and you're still getting those cravings in that premenstrual time, try increasing your protein even further. That can be a slightly helpful strategy. So you could go up to 1.2 to 1.4 grams per kilogram of body weight. And also think about magnesium rich foods. So those dark green leaf vegetables can be really, another supportive strategy. It might not be the complete answer, and agree with Sam. Please go to your GP if you can't get on top of that. So thank you so much to everybody who has joined us today. We are going to close the webinar. We are talking all about weight loss and weight coming on, weight going back off, that cycle of weight regain next week in our webinar on Tuesday. And we would love to see you there. So, and please do let us know next week if you come back how you've got on this week and whether you've managed to make any helpful changes for you. So,
Yes, great. Thank you, everybody. It's great to see you as ever. See you next week.
Sam, thank you, Raman, and see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.